There is a strange space that nobody warns you about, an invisible void that exists right in the middle, exactly between the moment you begin fighting for something and the instant you finally achieve it. That place is real. It has its own weight inside your mind, its own emotional pressure. But because almost nobody knows how to define it, people also never learn how to survive it. And because they do not know what to do with that waiting period, because uncertainty feels unbearable, most people make a mistake that destroys everything before it even has the chance to grow. They fill the silence, they flood it with noise, unnecessary conversations, constant updates, endless explanations, just so everyone around them can see that they are trying, that they are moving, that they are building something important with their lives. There is this desperate need to be witnessed while struggling, a deep craving for recognition before the results even arrive. People want the world to know they are evolving, improving, sacrificing, surviving. And honestly, to a certain degree, that feeling is completely human. When you have spent months carrying pressure alone, when you have silently endured disappointment after disappointment, it becomes natural to want someone, anyone, to acknowledge the weight you have been carrying even before success finally reaches your hands. But over time, I understood something that completely changed the way I move through life. And I will admit it honestly, it was not an easy lesson to accept. In fact, it took me years to fully understand it. All that constant noise, all that impulsive need to announce every step of your journey to the outside world costs you far more than you realize. And I am not saying this because sharing your life is wrong. This is not about becoming cold, distant, or isolated from people. It is deeper than that. Your goals, your dreams, and the transformation you are trying to create require a very specific kind of energy in order to move from imagination into reality. That energy is delicate. It does not survive in chaotic environments. The moment too many voices enter your process, the moment everybody feels entitled to project their fears, doubts, and opinions onto your path, something inside your momentum weakens. Before you even build a solid foundation for yourself, outside energy begins invading the construction site of your mind. And most people do not realize how dangerous that is. Because creative energy grows in silence. Real transformation happens quietly. The strongest changes in your life are almost always invisible in the beginning. They happen internally first. Long before anyone else notices a difference in you, something deep inside your mind has already started rearranging itself. Your standards change, your habits begin shifting, your focus sharpens, your tolerance for distraction slowly dies. But these stages are fragile. They are like seeds buried underground. If constantly exposed too early, they never fully develop roots. That is why silence is not weakness. Silence is protection. When you learn to guard your energy as if it were your most valuable possession, everything around you begins moving differently. Your mind becomes calmer. Your decisions become clearer. You stop seeking approval for every little step. And strangely enough, the less you announce, the more progress you actually make. Most people cannot handle this stage. They run back toward distractions because silence forces them to confront themselves. And confronting yourself is uncomfortable. In silence, you cannot escape your fears, your insecurities, your impatience, or your uncertainty. There are no distractions left to hide behind. That is why so many people quit right before their lives begin changing. They mistake discomfort for failure, but discomfort is often proof that something inside you is evolving. I want you to think carefully about this. Have you ever noticed that some of the best things that happened in your life were the very things you kept private while they were growing? Maybe it was a relationship that truly lasted. Maybe it was an opportunity that appeared unexpectedly and changed your direction forever. Maybe it was an internal decision that completely transformed the way you saw yourself. Now compare that to the plans you announced too early, the goals you celebrated before they were stable, the dreams you exposed to everybody while they were still fragile and unfinished. How many of those eventually collapsed under pressure? How many times did excitement disappear after too many conversations? How many ideas lost their power the moment they became public? This is not bad luck. It is not coincidence either. There is something psychological happening underneath all of this. When you constantly speak about your future before it materializes, your brain can become addicted to the emotional reward of talking instead of the discipline of execution. Attention creates a temporary illusion of accomplishment. The compliments, encouragement, and validation from others trick your mind into feeling progress before progress has actually happened. And slowly, without realizing it, the hunger weakens, the fire becomes smaller. Your energy shifts from building your reality to performing your intentions for other people. That is why some individuals talk endlessly about becoming successful, but remain in the exact same place year after year. They are emotionally consuming the reward before earning it. Their identity becomes attached to appearing ambitious instead of actually transforming themselves. Meanwhile, the people who truly change their lives usually move differently, quietly, patiently, almost invisibly. While everyone else is announcing goals, they are building discipline. While others are looking for applause, they are strengthening consistency. While people seek attention, they are protecting focus. And eventually, the results speak so loudly that explanations become unnecessary. This does not mean you should become paranoid or stop trusting everyone around you. It simply means you must become more intentional about where your energy goes. Not everybody deserves access to your unfinished process. Not everyone understands your vision. Some people unintentionally project limitations onto you because they are trapped inside their own fears. And if your mind is still in a vulnerable stage, those opinions can infect your confidence more than you think. There are dreams that require darkness before they can survive the light. There are seasons in life where silence is not loneliness, it is preparation. This is why you must learn the difference between isolation and preservation. Isolation comes from fear. Preservation comes from wisdom. One disconnects you from life, the other protects the future you are trying to create. And the truth is, your greatest blessings often arrive when you stop obsessively explaining yourself to the world, when you stop trying to prove your potential before the results exist, when you finally become secure enough to work in private without needing constant recognition from others, because real power is usually quiet. The strongest people in the room are rarely the loudest ones. The people experiencing the deepest transformation are often invisible while it is happening. And by the time everyone notices the change, the work has already been done in silence long before the applause arrived. So, if your life currently feels uncertain, if you are in that strange middle space where nothing fully makes sense yet, do not panic. That space is part of the process. You are not lost simply because your results are not visible yet. Some of the most important chapters of your life are being written in places nobody else can see. Most people dismiss it immediately, almost instinctively, as if it were nothing more than superstition or irrational thinking. But beneath that surface lies one of the harshest truths about the way reality is actually built. Whenever something is new inside of you, whenever an idea, a vision, or a new identity is still forming, it exists in an incredibly fragile state. At that stage, it is highly sensitive to the environment surrounding it. Think about a seed that has just been buried beneath the earth. You would never dig it up every few days, just to check whether roots have started to appear. You would not expose it to the harsh sunlight too early, carrying it around for everyone to inspect, while asking if they truly believe it will someday become a strong and unshakable tree. What you do instead is protect it. You water it carefully. You create the right conditions for it to survive. And more importantly than anything else, you trust the process in complete privacy. Deep down, you understand something important. Before that seed can become what it was meant to become, it must spend time hidden beneath the ground. It needs darkness. It needs silence. It needs distance from the eyes and opinions of other people. Your personal transformation works exactly the same way. There is always a period of gestation before a new life can emerge within you. Every dream, every reinvention, every major shift in your reality requires a hidden phase where nothing visible seems to happen on the outside, even though everything is changing internally. That period is sacred, and it is precisely during this stage that one of the most destructive forces enters the picture. I am not talking about obvious enemies or openly negative people who clearly want to see you fail. Those people are easy to recognize and avoid. The real danger is much more subtle than that. It comes quietly. It hides behind concern, familiarity, and even love. It is the silent doubt carried by people who care about you, but who live under completely different belief systems than the one your vision requires. It is the family member who carefully asks when you are finally going to choose something more stable. It is the old friend who gently suggests that you should probably prepare a backup plan in case everything collapses. They are not trying to destroy you. They do not hate you. In fact, most of them genuinely believe they are protecting you. But the moment you expose your unfinished vision too early, their inability to see what you see slowly begins to infiltrate your mind like poison. And the terrifying part is that this poison works quietly. Almost without noticing it, you begin questioning ideas that felt absolutely certain only moments before. Your energy becomes heavier. Your actions lose momentum. You start slowing down without even realizing it. Suddenly, you feel the need to explain yourself. You begin softening your dreams so they sound more realistic, more acceptable, less uncomfortable for other people to hear. Without intending to, you start building mental escape routes. You create emergency plans for realities you never truly wanted. Little by little, your original vision starts shrinking before it ever had the chance to fully exist. And this is exactly what makes this trap so dangerous. Nobody tells you that doubt rarely arrives in the form of direct hatred or brutal criticism. If it did, rejecting it would be easy. Most of the time, doubt arrives disguised as sincere concern. It comes wrapped in affection, protection, and emotional closeness. Those are the hardest influences to block because your emotional instincts naturally want to listen to the people you love. But life eventually teaches you something painful. Protecting your goals from premature external energy does not mean isolating yourself from the world or rejecting the people who care about you. It simply means developing the wisdom to understand that not every gift is meant to be opened publicly before it is complete. There is an important distinction that needs to be made here, because not all silence comes from wisdom. Some people move in silence, purely out of pride. They secretly fantasize about shocking everyone with sudden success. They stay quiet because they crave revenge, validation, or the satisfaction of proving doubters wrong. Their silence is not peace, it is performance. Internally, they are still obsessed with the opinions of others. Their minds continue orbiting around external approval, even while pretending not to care. And if you continue living that way, you will never experience real freedom. The kind of silence we are talking about here is entirely different. It is the silence that emerges when you become so deeply connected to your purpose that the need for validation simply begins to disappear. It is a psychological state where your energy is no longer wasted trying to convince people that your future is possible. You stop seeking permission. You stop trying to make everyone understand your path. You become rooted in something far deeper than applause. You begin to realize that your emotional energy is limited. Every single day, pieces of your attention are being pulled in different directions by conversations, opinions, distractions, fears, and expectations. And instead of spending that energy talking endlessly about your future, you consciously decide to invest it into building your future. That kind of silence is not weakness, it is focus. And once you reach that state, you start noticing a fascinating pattern that appears over and over again in the lives of people who are on the edge of major transformation. Right before the greatest chapter of your life begins, there is often a period of deep isolation, not necessarily physical isolation, where you completely disappear from society, but an internal retreat, a silent movement inward, a stage where you naturally begin disconnecting from external noise because something deeper inside you is demanding your full attention. To other people, this stage can look alarming. They may think something is wrong with you. They may assume you are losing motivation, giving up, or collapsing under pressure. From the outside, it can appear as though you are becoming smaller. But internally, the reality is completely different. What is actually happening is that you are gathering psychological pressure. You are reclaiming scattered pieces of your mind. You are pulling your attention back from unnecessary conversations, pointless distractions, and emotional chaos. Every fragment of your focus is returning to one central point. You are preparing yourself to carry something greater than the version of life you have known before, because massive change requires massive internal stability. And the people who panic during this natural season of withdrawal often miss the opportunity of their lives. They become so afraid of being forgotten that they force themselves to remain visible everywhere. They make noise constantly. They keep performing for the outside world because silence makes them uncomfortable. But in doing so, they lose the ability to hear what life is trying to give them. Everything may already be aligning in your favor behind the scenes. The gears may already be moving. Opportunities may already be approaching your reality. But those rewards require a version of you that is grounded, receptive, and emotionally centered. Your future cannot fully land inside a mind that is fragmented by endless distractions. It cannot grow inside someone who is emotionally shaped by the conflicting opinions of 100 different people telling them how their life should look. At some point, you must decide whose voice will define your reality. Because the truth is that every extraordinary transformation begins in invisibility. Before anything powerful becomes visible in the external world, it is first protected in silence. Every meaningful reinvention starts in private. And the people who understand this stop rushing to announce every dream before it has developed roots strong enough to survive external pressure. There is a reason nature hides its most important processes underground. There is a reason growth often happens in darkness before it appears in the light. And maybe the season you are currently living through is not a sign that you are falling behind at all. Maybe it is proof that something powerful is finally taking shape inside you. They demand a version of you that has finally returned home, back to its own center, back to its own core. And that unshakable return only happens the moment you close the door to the noise outside and learn how to sit alone with yourself without needing distraction to survive. I know this is the exact point where the journey becomes difficult in everyday life. We live inside a culture that constantly pushes us to throw every part of ourselves outward into the world. Screens reward you for broadcasting your existence in real time. The world moves around, proving what you are accomplishing at this exact moment, and somehow it feels like if you are not reporting your progress to an audience, then you simply stop existing. Moving silently through this modern reality requires becoming extremely selective about where your energy goes and who is allowed to witness your process. It means, through pure instinct for survival, refusing to let your direction be determined by people who have never once stepped onto the path you are trying to walk. Following another person's map through territory they themselves do not understand is the fastest way to lose yourself completely. What matters now is not applause. It is not recognition. It is not how many people approve of your decisions. What truly matters is the raw quality of the conversations you have with yourself when absolutely nobody is watching. Because it is in those hidden moments, in the silence of your own mind, where you begin building the sharpest weapon a human being can possess: patience. But I am not talking about passive waiting. I am not talking about sitting in a corner, feeling abandoned by time, trapped inside frustration while life moves around you. I am talking about active trust, a fierce kind of certainty, a state where even in silence, even in invisibility, something inside you continues moving forward with absolute conviction. The psychological distance between passive waiting and active trust is enormous. Passive waiting slowly destroys you from the inside. It keeps you stagnant. It fills your mind with bitterness and turns every day into proof that nothing is happening. But active trust transforms the way you move through life. It keeps your spirit alive even before there are visible results. It allows you to continue building long before the world can see what is being created beneath the surface. In that state, you begin to understand something brutal but liberating. The most important work in human life is almost always invisible at first. Real transformation happens underground. It happens in silence. It happens during the seasons where nobody claps for you, nobody notices your discipline, and nobody understands the sacrifices you are making. And yet, beneath the surface, everything is changing. A seed does not break through the earth the moment it is planted. For a long time, all the growth happens in darkness. Roots expand in silence before anything becomes visible. Human beings are no different. The strongest identities are formed in private. The most dangerous levels of discipline are built away from attention, and the people who eventually become impossible to ignore are often the same people who once felt invisible for years. If you have been operating from the shadows for a long time, if you have been carrying the weight of your own transformation without receiving recognition, then I want to speak directly to you. I know there are nights when your mind betrays you, nights where exhaustion makes you question everything, nights where the silence becomes so heavy that you begin wondering whether this isolation is actually growth or just emptiness disguised as self-improvement. I understand that feeling more than you realize. But listen carefully to this. That silence you have been sitting inside is not empty. It has never been empty. It has been loaded with pressure, with lessons, with pain that was necessary to destroy the weaker version of yourself you could no longer afford to remain. Every lonely moment has been shaping your mind. Every disappointment has been refining your standards. Every setback has been forcing you to become emotionally stronger than you were before. This period was never punishment. It was preparation. You were being adjusted internally in ways you could not yet fully understand. Painful adjustments, necessary adjustments, the kind that slowly transform you into the only version of yourself capable of carrying the future you keep asking for. Because real rewards, the kind that permanently change the structure of your life, never arrive before you are strong enough to sustain them. People think success is only about receiving something: money, recognition, opportunity, power. But what most people never realize is that receiving without preparation destroys people every single day. There are individuals who gain everything they wanted only to collapse under the weight of it, because internally they were still fragile. Their identity was weak. Their discipline was inconsistent. Their emotional foundation could not support what they had attracted into their lives. That is why your process has taken longer than you expected. Not because life is against you, not because some invisible force is denying your destiny, but because the person who is supposed to receive what is coming is still being forged under pressure. And pressure reveals everything. Pressure exposes insecurity. Pressure burns away illusion. Pressure forces growth that comfort could never produce. Every single day you refused to quit, despite the lack of recognition, you became stronger. Every moment you kept moving forward without physical proof of success, you removed another layer of weakness that could have ruined your future later on. Every sacrifice you made in silence mattered more than you know right now. So remain silent a little longer. Protect the mental fortress you have worked so hard to build. Stop wasting energy explaining your vision to people who never had the courage to step into the battlefield you fight in every day. Not everyone deserves access to your process. Not everyone deserves explanations. Some people only understand results, and that is perfectly fine. Let them misunderstand you while you continue building. Save your energy for the final strike. Return to your center again and again until your confidence no longer depends on outside validation. Return to that deep certainty that your moment is approaching, not because of blind optimism, but because you know the work has been done. You know how many nights you stayed disciplined when nobody was watching. You know how many times you chose growth instead of comfort. You know the sacrifices that were made in silence. The underground season is ending. Everything you carried in darkness is beginning to rise to the surface. The mindset you built in isolation is becoming unshakable. The discipline that once felt invisible is becoming part of who you are. And soon, people will only see the outcome without understanding the years of internal war that created it. But that no longer matters. You are no longer seeking permission to believe in yourself. You are no longer waiting for the world to confirm your worth before you move forward. The doubt that once controlled your mind no longer belongs here. You have already survived the hardest part, becoming someone stronger without immediate rewards. Now the only question remaining is not whether you are ready for the world to see you win. The real question is whether you have developed enough calmness, enough emotional control, and enough inner stability to stand firmly in your power when everything you once dreamed about finally arrives in your hands.